Welcome back to the deep dive. Today I think we're going to be, well, let's just say we might be making some enemies.
Oh, really? Starting off strong, I like it. Who are we upsetting this time?
Pretty much anyone, I think, who likes to just, turn their brain off when they watch a movie.
Ah, the classic passive viewing experience.
Exactly. We were looking at the Indie Film Lab's deep dive into cinematography and camera work, and I have to be honest with you, it feels a little bit like I've been handed the code to the Matrix. It's unsettling.
It really is. It fundamentally changes how you consume media, doesn't it?
Completely.
You stop just seeing a story and you start seeing a series of very deliberate decisions.
Right. And the source material kicks off with this idea that I just found so fascinating. It calls it the great cinematic lie, which is the idea that the camera is just a window. It's just a piece of glass. It's objectively showing you what happened in a room.
Which is, of course, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled, right?
Yeah. Precisely. Because we're hardwired to think of a camera as a mechanical eye. It's supposed to be objective. It sees the truth.
But this research argues the complete opposite. It says the camera is what was the phrase? A psychological puppeteer.
Yes. It's making an argument. It's having a debate with you, the viewer, and you don't even know it's happening.
Well, think about it this way. If I write a book, you know I'm the narrator. You accept that I'm choosing every single word. You even accept that I might be an unreliable narrator.
Sure, that's part of the contract of reading a novel.
But when you see an image, your brain's default setting is seeing is believing. It's a much more direct and kind of sneaky way of telling a story.
So all those little things, like when the camera looks up at a character from the floor or it gets all shaky during a fight scene.
That is not an accident. That is camera placement doing emotional labor. I absolutely love that phrase from the
Thank you. It's so good.
The camera is telling you who to fear, who to trust, who has the power in the room. And it's doing it all subconsciously before a single line of dialogue is spoken.
And that really is our mission for this deep dive. We're going to try to dismantle that visual grammar.
We're learning to read the language of the image, not just the words, like that Edward Lackman quote in The Source.
Oh, yeah, that was fantastic. The image is the language of cinema, not words. I try to find the visual grammar. That's exactly it.
So we're going to look at everything. The geometry of power, the psychology of different lenses, the way camera movement can manipulate your sense of time and stability.
And I should warn you now, by the end of this hour, we might just ruin Jurassic Park for you. Just a fair warning.
A noble sacrifice for the sake of knowledge.
I think so. Okay. So let's get the lay of the land first, the roadmap for today. We have a lot to get through.
Let's do it.
We're starting with the foundational philosophy, the camera as an active narrator. Then we're moving into what the source calls the geometry of power. That's all about angles and visual hierarchy.
High angle, low angle. Who's big, who's small.
Exactly. From there, it's the geometry of intimacy shot scales, framing how close or far we are from the action.
The difference between watching a battle and having a whisper in your ear.
Then we get into the kinetic camera, how movement itself tells a story. After that, we dive into the really technical but fascinating stuff, the optical layer.
Lenses, light, focus, all the nitty-gritty.
And finally, to bring it all home, we're going to put on our lab coats and do a full synthesis, a case study. We're going to take all these tools and just dismantle the iconic kitchen scene from Jurassic Park.
That's the final exam. It's the perfect scene to see if we've really absorbed these lessons. It uses every trick in the book.
It really does. Okay, let's not wait any longer. Let's start at the very beginning. Section 1, the active narrator.
The big idea.
The big idea. So the source material makes this really sharp distinction between the camera as a simple recorder versus the camera as a narrator. Break that down for me, because narrator implies a voice, a person speaking.
It does, and that's the beautiful trick of it. In a novel, like you said, the narrator can just state the emotion. The text can say, he walked into the room and felt an overwhelming sense of dread.
Right, it just tells you.
Film can't do that. Well, it can with a voiceover, but that's often seen as a crutch. The camera, the visual narrator, has to show you that dread without using a single word.
So how does it do that?
It does it by answering invisible questions. Questions that you, the viewer, don't even realize you're asking on a subconscious level.
Invisible questions, like what?
Primal basic survival questions. Where am I standing in this room? Am I safe? Who should I be looking at? Who do I trust? Who am I afraid of? Am I hidden in a corner or am I exposed out in the open?
So if I'm watching a scene and I suddenly feel my pulse quicken, or I feel this weird sense of intimacy with a character I just met, that isn't just the actor's performance or the music.
It's rarely just the acting. You could have the greatest actor in the world delivering the most terrifying monologue, but if you film them from 100 feet away with a flat, neutral, eye-level angle, they won't feel scary.
They'll just look like a person.
Acting. Exactly. They'll look like an actor on a stage. The emotion is manufactured by the cinematography. It is camera placement doing emotional labor. If you feel fear, it's because the camera was placed in a position designed to induce fear in a human brain. It's a physiological response.
It's a cheat code for empathy or for terror.
It absolutely is. And this leads us to what the notes call the fundamental choice. This is like the big bang of cinematic language, a fork in the road that cinema took right at its birth.
This is the history lesson part, but it feels, it feels more like a philosophical debate. It's the difference between what they call the Edison approach and the Lumiere approach.
This is so crucial. This is literally where the visual language of storytelling was invented by two different groups with two totally different philosophies.
So let's go back. Late 1800s. Thomas Edison in America.
Right. Edison, the inventor. He's a brilliant man, but he's not really thinking like an artist in the modern sense of the word. He's thinking like an engineer. When he filmed something like the short film The Kiss in 1896, how did he set up his camera?
He plonked it down as if it were a person sitting in the best seat in a Broadway theater. Just a straight-on 90-degree angle recording the stage.
Exactly. The camera is a static eye in an auditorium. It's the objective approach. The source calls it passive observation. The camera watches from a safe, comfortable distance. It's sending a clear message. I am watching a performance.
Okay, so that's I bought a ticket, I'm eating my popcorn, I'm totally safe behind this fourth wall perspective.
Yes, it's the proscenium arch. But then at the same time, you have the Lumiere brothers over in France. And they weren't just inventors, they were photographers. They understood composition, they understood perspective.
And they filmed Arrival of a Train in 1896.
They did.
Yeah.
And they did not put the camera flat.
No, they put it on an angle, a really dramatic angle.
A sharp, acute, diagonal angle, right up close to the tracks. So the train doesn't just move across the screen from left to right. It comes from deep in the background and rushes at the camera, getting bigger and bigger and bigger until it just completely overwhelms the frame.
And that's where the legend comes from, right? That people in the theater literally screamed and ran because they thought a real train was about to burst through the screen.
Exactly. Because for the very first time in history, the camera wasn't just watching an event. The camera was participating in it. It was in the splash zone. That is the subjective approach. The camera's attitude is, I live here now. I am in danger.
It's the difference between observing something and experiencing it.
And that is the choice. For every single shot in every single movie ever made, the director has to answer that question. Am I Edison right now, or am I Lumiere? Do I want my audience to be a safe observer or an active participant?
It's just wild that a decision made in 1896 is still fundamentally dictating how we watch a Marvel movie today.
It's the DNA of cinema.
Okay, so let's move from that philosophical history to geometry. This section 2, the geometry of power, this is where it gets really juicy for me, specifically vertical angles.
This is where that psychological puppeteer really comes out to play. Because vertical angles, looking up at something or looking down at something, they're effectively an act of judgment.
Judgment.
Yes. The camera is telling you the social or physical hierarchy of the scene before anyone says anything.
So let's unpack that. Let's start with the low angle. The camera is placed down low, and it's looking up at a character.
This is often called the hero shot. Or sometimes the monster shot.
Wait, okay, how can it be both? A hero and a monster feel like polar opposites?
They are opposites morally, for sure. But in terms of the visual language of power, they are identical. They are both powerful.
Ah, I see.
When you lower that camera and you tilt it up, you are visually exaggerating the size and stature of the subject. You make them loom over the viewer. This instantly implies authority, gravitas, importance, or menace.
Because the viewer is made to feel physically smaller. You're put in a subservient position.
Exactly. And this is where we have to talk about, basic human biology. Why does looking up at something make us feel small and submissive?
I would assume because, big things can step on us. It's a survival instinct.
That's a huge part of it, the predator-prey dynamic. But the source material points to something even more fundamental. Think about the first 5-6 years of your life.
Okay.
Every single person who had authority over you, everyone who kept you alive, your parents, your teachers, your guardians, was taller than you. Every person who could discipline you was taller than you. We literally spend our most formative years looking up at power.
Oh, wow. That makes so much sense. So the low-angle shot is basically hacking our childhood brain.
It is. It's triggering a primal, deeply ingrained response. When the camera lowers itself, the subject on screen becomes the parent, or they become the predator. Because in the wild, if you're looking up at a bear, you're probably already on the ground, which means you're losing the fight.
So when we see Darth Vader shot from a low angle, our brain isn't just processing he is the bad guy. We are feeling on a gut level he is the authority figure, which, ironic.
Very, very fitting for Star Wars, isn't it?
It really is. Okay, so then the opposite of that is the high angle. The camera's up high, looking down.
The victim shot, as it's sometimes called. You place the camera high, you tilt it down. Suddenly, the subject becomes smaller. They're dwarfed by their environment, by the floor, by the landscape. It immediately implies vulnerability, entrapment, or insignificance.
The notes use that word entrapment. Why does looking down on someone specifically make them look trapped? That's an interesting connection.
It's about context. When you shoot from below, the character is often framed against the sky or the ceiling. They look limitless, they break the horizon. But when you shoot from above, you see them pinned against the ground. You see the boundaries of their world.
You can see the edges of the cage.
You see the edges of the cage? They look like a specimen in a jar or a bug on a pinboard. You, the viewer, are in the position of power looking down on them.
The source also mentions a few special angles that take these ideas to the extreme. Let's talk about the bird's eye view.
This is when the camera is directly overhead, looking straight down at a 90-degree angle. It's a fascinating and very specific choice because it tends to remove humanity from the equation.
How so?
When you look at people from that extreme angle, they stop being individuals with faces and emotions. They become shapes.
Or ants.
Exactly. They become patterns in a maze. It's a very detached, godlike perspective. It's often used to show ideas of fate or determinism or just how small and insignificant human struggles are in the grand scheme of things.
I'm thinking of a movie where a character is lost in a huge crowd.
Perfect example. If you shoot that at eye level, you feel their panic and claustrophobia. You're in there with them. But if you shoot it from a bird's eye view, you just see one dot moving erratically through a sea of other dots. It becomes a diagram of chaos rather than the feeling of chaos.
And then on the complete other end of that spectrum, you have the Dutch angle, which sounds like it should be a delicious pastry, but it is actually one of the most unsettling tools in the kit.
It is. The Dutch angle, or the canted angle, is simply when you tilt the camera so the horizon line isn't level.
Right. And the source makes this great point that it isn't just about the camera saying, hey, something is weird here. It makes the viewer feel that the entire world has become untrustworthy.
It's the reality is slipping effect. And again, this goes right back to biology. Your inner ear, your vestibular system, is constantly working to keep you balanced. It craves a straight, reliable horizon line to orient itself.
So when the horizon in the film tilts,
your brain has a tiny little glitch. It feels wrong. It's a feeling of vertigo, like you're about to fall over or you're seasick. So when a director uses a Dutch angle, they are bypassing your intellectual brain entirely and sending a distress signal directly to your equilibrium.
It's a physical feeling?
It's purely visceral. You see it all the time in like Mission Impossible movies. The plan is going perfectly. The camera is stable and locked down. The second something goes wrong, bam, the camera tilts. It's a visual alarm bell.
So we've covered the vertical axis, which is power. Now let's talk about the horizontal axis, which is distance. Section 3, the geometry of intimacy. This is all about shot scale. How close are we to the subject?
And this is something we navigate unconsciously in our lives every single day. The science of proxemics. You stand a certain distance from a stranger at the bus stop, a different distance from a colleague at work, and a very different distance from a romantic partner.
The camera is essentially mimicking those social zones.
It's co-opting that social language to create emotional reactions.
So let's walk through those zones, from farthest to closest. We start with the extreme long shot.
The epic shot.
Yeah, you think of a tiny little figure on horseback in a massive desert, that classic Lawrence of Arabia style shot.
This is all about context and geography. The statement it's making is, look at this world. You are small. The individual subject is minimized. The environment is completely dominant. It's a shot about scale or isolation or humanity versus nature.
Okay, then we push in a little bit. We get to the long shot.
This is about action and choreography. Now you can see the full human body from head to toe. The focus shifts from the environment to how the character moves and interacts with her immediate physical space.
So this is where you'd film a dance number or a big sword fight.
Exactly. You need to see the whole body to appreciate the physicality in the movement.
And then we move in again to the medium shot. This is probably the most common shot in cinema, right? Waist up.
By far.
Yeah.
This is the shot of sociability. This is the comfortable distance of a normal conversation. It's how we see people when we're talking to them at a party. The message is, let's talk.
It's about relationships.
It's about interaction. If you notice, the vast majority of dialogue scenes in your standard dramas or romantic comedies, they live in the medium shot. It's comfortable, it's human, it's relatable.
But then we break that comfortable distance, we get to the close-up, and the source material has this fantastic heading for it, the aggression of the close-up. I love that framing. Why is a close-up considered aggressive? We usually think of them as being tender or intimate.
They absolutely can be tender, but they're also inherently invasive. Think about it in real life. To get that close to another person's face, close enough that you can see the pores on their skin, the tiny flecks of color in their iris, you either have to be in a moment of extreme intimacy with them,
Or you have to be attacking them.
or you're in a fight. If a total stranger stood 3 inches from your face on the subway and just stared at you, your first thought would not be, "Oh, what a lovely intimate moment."
No, I'd be thinking, I am in danger.
Exactly. The close-up is a violation of personal space, and it obliterates context. This is the great paradox, the great trade-off of the shot scale. The closer you get to a character's face, the more emotional intimacy you gain, but the less information you have about where they are or what's happening around them.
A close-up is saying you don't get to look away.
That's it. It isolates the character from their entire setting.
Yeah.
It's pure, uncut emotion. The frame is filled with nothing but a face, and you are forced to confront whatever that face is feeling.
It's confrontational.
It is. The notes even pose it as a kind of ethical question for the filmmaker and for us. Are we allowed to look this closely at someone? The camera forces that intimacy on you, whether the character consents or not. It demands you pay attention, demands you emphasize. You simply can't ignore a human face when it's 40 feet tall on a movie screen.
Speaking of things we can't see, that's a perfect transition to talking about the unseen, off-screen space. I love this idea that the frame is just an arbitrary rectangle.
This is one of the coolest and most powerful concepts in all of filmmaking because it relies entirely on weaponizing the audience's own imagination against them.
Right, we think the movie is just what's happening inside the rectangle of the screen.
But the characters in the film behave as if the world continues on outside the rectangle. They look at things off screen, they hear things off screen. And as a viewer, your brain knows that too. So negative space is when a director deliberately composes a shot to leave a large part of the frame empty.
Like framing a character way over on the left side of the screen, leaving the entire right side empty and dark.
Exactly. And that empty space, as the source says, it cries out to be filled. It creates this unbearable suspense. You find yourself staring at the nothingness, your brain screaming, something is going to enter that space.
The classic example given in the notes is, of course, Hitchcock's Psycho, the shower scene.
The perfect example.
Right.
Everyone remembers the knife and the screaming and the music. But if you go back and watch the framing of that scene, the threat doesn't come from the center of the screen. The threat comes from the negative space.
The camera shows you Marion in the shower, but it's framed in a way that there's all this space around her.
And you see the silhouette of the killer appear in that negative space behind the shower curtain. The suspense is created by what is excluded from our view. The camera isn't showing you the monster clearly, it's showing you the empty space where the monster could be.
Which is infinitely scarier.
Because your brain fills that empty space with your own worst nightmare. It's a brilliant trick. The monster you imagine is always scarier than the rubber suit they actually built for the movie.
Okay, this is amazing. So we've placed the camera in space, we've angled it, we've chosen our framing. Now it's time to move it. Let's get into section 4. The kinetic camera.
Movement. This is where you change the psychology of time and stability within a shot. And the source really breaks this down into 2 main flavors. You've got fluidity versus chaos.
Let's start with fluidity. This is the tracking shot or the dolly shot. The camera is on wheels or rails or a Steadicam. It's smooth.
This is what the source calls the godlike view. The camera moves smoothly and effortlessly through space, almost like it's floating. It feels omniscient, all-seeing. It has a seductive quality because it feels so elegant and controlled. There's no friction, no struggle.
The case study for this is one of the most famous shots in movie history, the Copacabana shot from Goodfellas.
The one-take wonder.
For anyone who hasn't seen it, it's where the gangster Henry Hill takes his date, Karen, into this fancy nightclub, but he takes her through the back entrance.
Right. And it's this incredibly long, unbroken shot. And it's not just famous because it was technically difficult to pull off. It's famous because of what that movement says about the characters and their world.
Explain that.
We follow them as the camera just glides. It goes down the stairs, through the chaotic kitchen, with waiters rushing everywhere. People are greeting Henry. Tables are being brought out. Tips are being handed out. It feels completely effortless.
The source material says that this shot isn't just showing off, it's making an argument. It's saying, this is normal for these people, and now it's normal for you too.
Precisely. It seduces you, the viewer, into the gangster lifestyle. It makes it look glamorous and powerful. Now, just imagine for a second if that exact same scene were shot with a shaky handheld camera.
It would feel completely different.
You'd see the grime in the kitchen. You'd feel the frantic, stressful energy. You'd probably think this place is chaotic and dangerous. But because the camera movement is so smooth and fluid and confident, you feel the power and the privilege. The movement persuades you to like them. It makes you want to be on that ride.
Now let's contrast that directly with the handheld camera.
Total chaos, immediacy, a feeling of realism. This is the camera sitting on an operator's shoulder. It breathes with them. It shakes. It reacts to impacts. It behaves like a human body that's under stress.
But why do we as an audience automatically associate shaky with real?
It's a learned language, borrowed from the history of documentary and newsreel footage. Think about it. Real war footage is shaky. Real footage of a riot is shaky. So when a fiction filmmaker uses a handheld camera, they are borrowing the aesthetic of truth.
It's a shortcut to authenticity, like in the Bourne Supremacy car chases, or a film like The Blair Witch Project.
Exactly. The shaking sends a message. No one is in control here. It creates a visceral impact. It bypasses your intellectual brain and goes straight for your nervous system. You feel the anxiety because the camera itself seems anxious. It's imperfect, and that imperfection makes it feel true.
The source also points out that even when the camera is stationary, it can still move, the pan and the tilt.
Right. Even when the camera's locked down on a tripod, it can still pivot. A pan is when it moves side to side horizontally. This is described as the searching eye.
It's scanning the horizon.
Yeah, think of a classic Western where the hero is on a ridge, scanning the vast landscape for the approaching enemy. It builds anticipation. It's a shot about looking and waiting.
And the tilt, moving up and down.
That's a vertical assessment. It's the camera sizing something or someone up.
Yeah.
Typically, you tilt up to reveal something powerful, a towering skyscraper, a giant monster. Or you tilt down to reveal a crucial detail, a hidden weapon, a clue on the floor.
Sizing someone up. I like that. It's judgmental again. It's assessing value.
It's always making a judgment. And we should also remember stillness is also a powerful choice. Deliberate restraint. If you have two characters in a screaming match and the camera just sits there, perfectly still, it creates this incredible tension. It feels like a judge watching a trial. It forces the audience to just sit in the discomfort without any escape.
Now, there's one more type of movement we have to talk about, and it's a big one. The POV shot, the subjective camera. We touched on this with the Lumiere brothers, but looking at it through the lens of a film like John Carpenter's Halloween, it gets a lot darker.
The first-person perspective. This is when the camera literally becomes the character's eyes. In the opening scene of Halloween, we are placed inside the mask of the child killer, Michael Myers. We see his hands pick up the knife. We hear his breathing inside the mask.
And the source notes a very specific and important danger here. It says, shared gaze does not mean shared morality.
That is the crucial distinction to make. It's so important. Just because the film forces me to see what a character sees, it doesn't mean I have to agree with what that character does, but it creates a deeply uncomfortable intimacy.
We are forced to be accomplices.
We are holding the knife. Effectively, yes. In that scene, we don't have to agree with the killer, but we are the killer from a visual standpoint. The camera is manipulating us into a position of intimacy without accountability. It makes the horror deeply personal because you're not just watching the victim being stalked, you are the one doing the stalking.
That is profoundly unsettling.
It's designed to be. That's the power of it.
Let's shift a bit and talk about time. The source brings up two interesting techniques here, the long take versus the zoom.
Right. The long take, a single, unbroken shot that can go on for minutes at a time, is all about sustaining and building tension. Think about it. A cut in a movie is a release. It's a visual blink, lets you reset for a split second. The long take denies you that release.
Like that incredible opening shot of Orson Welles' Touch of Evil.
The classic example, we see a bomb placed in a car and then the camera just follows the car. It floats through the busy streets and it drifts away to other characters, then it comes back to the car. The tension builds and builds and builds because the camera refuses to look away.
You're just waiting for the explosion.
You're in real-time suspense. You find yourself begging for a cut, just for a moment to catch your breath. But the director won't give it to you.
And what about the zoom? How is that different from, say, a dolly shot moving closer?
It feels completely different. A dolly shot feels natural, like you're walking closer. The zoom feels artificial. The camera itself doesn't move, just the lens magnifies the image. It has a very different psychological effect. It feels analytical, invasive. It feels like surveillance.
A conversation is the film uses as an example here.
A masterpiece of surveillance cinema. The zooms in that film feel like a telescope or a sniper scope. It's not the camera saying, I am walking towards you to engage with you. It's the camera saying, I am inspecting you from a safe distance. It creates this cold, voyeuristic feeling. It feels like the character is being hunted or studied under a microscope.
Okay, we've moved the camera. Now it's time to talk about the glass itself. Section 5, the optical layer. Lenses, focus, texture, light. This is the part of the process where I think a lot of casual viewers, myself included, can get a bit lost. We can feel an angle, we can feel movement, but focal length, that just sounds like math.
It is math, but it's math that's been weaponized to create emotion.
I like that. So the source material really divides this into two main camps to keep it simple: the wide-angle lens and the telephoto lens. And it says they fundamentally change the geography of the scene. What does that mean?
So let's imagine a long hallway. If you shoot that hallway with a wide-angle lens, which is like the GoPro look, or the 0.5x setting on your iPhone, that hallway is going to look like it stretches on for infinity. The lens pushes the background further away. It expands the sense of space.
Which is why real estate agents love to use them for photos of tiny apartments.
Exactly, it's the realtor lens. But in a movie, like Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, that wide angle makes the Overlook Hotel feel impossibly vast and empty. It serves to isolate the characters because the walls feel miles away. It creates a sense of agoraphobia, but inside a building.
But there's a distortion effect too, right? If I get my face too close to a wide lens,
You look grotesque. Your nose gets huge, your ears seem to shrink away. It's the funhouse mirror effect. It makes things feel unstable, exposed, and chaotic. The example given in the notes is Sam Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch, where those wide lenses make the world feel violent and stretched to its breaking point.
okay, so that's the wide lens. Now the opposite is the telephoto, or the long lens.
This does the exact opposite. It crushes space. It acts like a telescope. Think about when you're watching a baseball game on TV. The camera is way out in center field, but the pitcher on the mound looks like he's standing right next to the batter at home plate, even though they're 60 feet apart.
Wait, the background looks huge and really close.
That effect is called compression. And psychologically, it feels incredibly claustrophobic. If you film a character running toward the camera with a telephoto lens, it creates this nightmarish effect where it looks like they aren't moving at all.
Yeah.
They're running and running, but they're not getting any closer because the background isn't changing.
Oh, like that iconic shot in The Graduate.
The classic example. Dustin Hoffman is sprinting to the church. He's giving it everything he's got, but the long lens flattens all the depth. He looks like he's trapped running on a treadmill. It creates this horrible feeling of powerlessness and desperation.
And within the lens, we also have focus. The source calls it directing the gaze.
Focus is absolute power. The director is literally choosing what you are allowed to see clearly. So you have deep focus, made famous by Citizen Kane, and that's where everything in the shot from the foreground to the deep background is perfectly crisp and sharp. The notes call this the democratic style of focus because the audience gets to choose where they look. You can look at the character in the foreground or the action happening through the window in the background. The director is giving you the freedom to scan the frame and decide for yourself what's important. It mimics how our eyes work in the real world.
And the opposite of that would be selective focus.
Which is guiding, or maybe even dictatorial. The foreground is sharp, and the background is a beautiful blurry mess, or vice versa. The director is pointing a giant invisible finger and saying, look at this is what matters. Ignore everything else. It's a dictatorship of the eye.
And rack focus is when that plane of focus shifts in the middle of a shot.
Right. You might be focused on a person in the foreground, and then the focus will smoothly shift, or rack, to a person in the background. That forces a comparison between the two. It's a visual and then. It's the camera saying, look at this cause, now look at this effect. It's a way of linking two ideas in the viewer's mind.
We also have to touch on texture and light, the whole film versus digital debate.
This is like the emotional temperature of the image. The source describes traditional film as feeling like pencil red or an etching. It has a physical grain. It has depth because light is literally burning an image into a chemical emulsion. It feels alive, organic. It can feel like a memory.
In digital.
The source calls it yellow. It's clean, it can be flat, it's often more clinical. The image is recorded as pixels on a single plane. Now, that's not a value judgment. It can be used to feel sterile and cold, or it can feel incredibly immediate and hyper-present, more real than reality.
And just to round out the optical layer, there's light and speed.
Super important. Light tells us how to feel. Underexposure, lots of shadows, creates mystery and fear.
Yeah.
Overexposure, where the image is blown out in white, can create a dream state or a feeling of being overwhelmed. And speed. Slow motion isn't just for making things look cool. In a film like Raging Bull, it's used to show exhaustion or to turn a brutal boxing match into a kind of violent poetry.
And fast motion.
It feels unnatural, supernatural, or mechanical. Like in the old silent film Nosferatu, it makes human movement look jerky and insect-like.
Okay, wow. We have covered a huge amount of ground. We've got the philosophy, the angles, the framing, the movement, the lenses, the focus, everything. Now, for the final exam, let's put it all together. The synthesis. The source gives us one perfect scene to deconstruct. The kitchen scene from Jurassic Park.
A masterclass in tension.
Absolutely. So paint the picture for us. The kids, Lex and Tim, are hiding. The velociraptors are hunting them. They're in this cold, sterile, stainless steel kitchen. How do all of these tools we've just discussed combine to make us want to hide under our own blankets?
Okay, so let's start with the most basic tool, off-screen space. The scene begins with the threat appearing from the unknown. We hear the raptor's claws clicking on the floor before we ever see it.
Right, that sound is terrifying.
And Spielberg holds on the empty kitchen door. That negative space just cries out to be filled by something horrible. He's forcing us to wait and use our imagination.
Okay, then what happens? I'm thinking about the movement. The pan.
Yes. Once the raptors are in the room, the camera tracks the hunt. It pans across the shiny steel counters, following the movement of the dinosaurs. It's that searching eye we talked about. We are scanning the kitchen with the kids, desperately trying to keep track of where the predators are.
Now, what about the angles? The geometry of power?
This is crucial. Spielberg consistently uses a high angle when he's on the kids.
The victim shot.
Exactly. They are on the floor, scrambling, trying to hide. By looking down on them, he makes them look so tiny and so vulnerable against all those hard, unforgiving surfaces of the kitchen. They are pinned against the floor like insects.
And the lens choice, this was the part that surprised me. The notes point out that he used a wide lens for much of this scene. Why would he do that? Wouldn't a telephoto lens make the dinosaur look bigger and closer?
He didn't want the dinosaur to feel closer. He wanted the exit to feel further away.
Oh, wow. Of course.
The wide lens stretches the room. It makes that kitchen counter they have to get around look like it's a mile long. It makes the escape route feel impossible to reach. If he had used a telephoto lens, it would have compressed the space and made the exit look deceptively close. By using a wide lens, he stretches the geography of fear. He increases their desperation.
So it's not just one thing. It's not just, oh, a scary dinosaur. It's the angle making the kids feel small, the wide lens making the room feel huge and impossible to cross, the camera pan tracking the predator, and the off-screen sound creating the initial dread.
Precisely. It's a symphony of technique. No single choice carries the scene. Cinema is a system. All of these tools are working together in concert to manipulate your heart rate and your breathing.
It really does kind of ruin it, but in the best possible way. I am never going to watch a raptor attack the same way again.
I'm sorry, and you're welcome.
So let's wrap this all up with the viewer's checklist. If you're listening to this and you're about to sit down and watch a movie tonight, what are the key questions you should have on your mental clipboard?
Keep it simple. I think there are 4 big questions you can ask for any scene. First, placement. Is the camera high or low? Close or far? That's going to tell you everything about the power dynamic and the level of intimacy.
Am I a child looking up at a parent or a god looking down on an ant?
Exactly. Second question, movement. Is the camera's movement fluid and godlike, or is it handheld and subjective? Are you floating through the scene, or are you shaking with the characters?
Okay, third.
Third, focus. Is it deep focus, the democratic style, or is it selective focus, the guiding style? Are you being given the freedom to look around, or is the director forcing you to look at one specific thing?
And the last one.
And number 4, texture. How does the light and the film stock or the digital sensor affect the mood? Does it feel gritty and real and grainy, or does it feel clean, crisp, and clinical?
If you can ask those 4 questions, placement, movement, focus, and texture, you're not just watching a movie anymore, you're reading it.
You're decoding it. You're seeing the code in the matrix.
The final takeaway from the source material is a heavy one, but I think it's the perfect summary. The camera is never doing nothing. It is always arguing, judging, and manipulating.
It is the narrator that never sleeps, and it's always whispering in your ear.
I want to leave our listeners with one final provocative thought, something that builds on that really unsettling subjective camera concept we discussed.
Okay.
We talked about how the camera in Halloween can force us to share a gaze with a killer, but let's expand that. If the camera truly dictates how we feel about a story, how often are we being manipulated into siding with the wrong person simply because the cinematography put us in their shoes?
That is the scary question, isn't it? If a character who is morally questionable or even outright villainous is consistently filmed with heroic low angles and smooth, confident tracking shots, do we subconsciously start to root for them against our better judgment?
And on the flip side, if the supposed hero of the story is always filmed with shaky handheld cameras and unflattering high angles that make them look weak and trapped, do we start to lose faith in them?
We all like to think our morals are our own, that we make our own judgments. But in the dark of a movie theater, when you're at your most suggestible, maybe our morals belong to the cinematographer.
It's something to think about the next time you turn on Netflix. Watch your back and watch the frame. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.
See you then.